Hello guys, kumusta kayong lahat? When the Korea administration prevailed amidst several coup attempts, it was the 1987 constitution, drafted by 48 members and overwhelmingly ratified by our people, that prevailed. It is the restored constitutional democracy that survived. It seems to be the God-inspired trend in the world today that people crave and demand for freedom and democracy, even at the cost of losing their precious lives. Let not our country march back to dictatorship or authoritarianism under the guise of giving solution to problems created by the deposed authoritarian administrator. While I credit the Cory administration for bringing back our much cherished democratic institution through a duly ratified fundamental charter, I think the Cory administration has committed violation of the Constitution here and there, and thus has shown less respect for the basic law of the country. Examples of violation of the Constitution by the Executive Department are continuous participation of the national government in the sharing of certain local taxes, allowing double positions in government, appointment of active members of the armed forces to civilian positions, appointment of COMELEC members as acting chairman of the Commission on Elections, supporting the unconstitutional law bill on referendum before ratification of the treaty by the Senate, etc. In the first anniversary of the 1987 Constitution last February 1988, we celebrated the bicentennial of the U.S. Constitution, a, a manifestation of our colonial mentality and subservience to foreign power. A clear, a clear denigration of our new constitution, while the president, upon suggestion of a university head, proclaimed February 2 as Constitution Day. She never issued a statement asking the people to reflect upon the importance of significance of the Constitution, and the incumbent president failed to ask the Secretary of Education to order class discussion of the role that the Constitution plays in our life and the need for full respect for the fundamental law. These were the practiced by previous president of our country, from Quezon Rojas Quirino Magsaysay Garcia Macapagal down even to Marcos. Constitution Day in the United States and other foreign states has been a source of great national rejoicing and pride, but not under Corazon Aquino. I regret to say the Integrated Bar and the PBA celebrated the February 2, 1989 anniversary by listening to the beautiful speech of Senate President Jovito Salonga, but no message was issued by Corazon Aquino. Bernie's moment. Shout out to you, Ma'am Bernice Moments. Kamusta ka? Ayan, sabi ni Ma'am, isang mapagpalang gabi po. Ma'am Bernice, maraming salamat. Actually, ako, babasa-basa ako para at least ma-enhance natin yung speech natin at the same time, matutunan tayo about the law of the land. Maraming salamat, Ma'am Bernice, sa iyong panonood. About the significance of the day, Commissioner Asconia personally told me that there was such a message, but the papers had not simply published it. Would Asconia expect me to believe him? Justice Cecilia Munoz Palma decried the absence of any editorial or write-up in newspaper except the Philippine Daily Inquirer. About the supreme law of the land, the Daily Bulletin carried nothing about the Constitution on that day. I commend GMA Channel 7 for sponsoring a program on February 2, 1989 on the new Constitution entitled The Spirit of 86. Let the President, just like our previous President, generate nationwide interest of the Constitution, the source of her powers, and those of the legislator and the judiciary as well. as other constitutional organs. She should set the example. She should bring back the great tradition of meaningfully celebrating Constitution Day nationwide. Kamusta ma'am? Ma'am Bernice, punta kita mamaya. Anyway, ayun. Kailan ka po ma'am mag-live? Anyway, tingnan ko po mamaya ma'am ha. The Constitution is not only a government document but also the people's document. It is the embodiment of the people's right and aspiration. A disregard of the Constitution may result in the loss of cherished liberties, according to the late Mr. Justice Calixto Saldivar. It is the people's bounden duty to support, defend, preserve, and enrich the Constitution. Justice Saldivar, nationalist scholar and statesman, observed that administration of government may suppress, suspend, or ignore the Constitution to serve their selfish end, and therefore, for the Constitution to survive, he said, that it has to depend on the people. Justice Saldivar loved to quote the beautiful words of U.S. Supreme Court Justice Sutherland. The saddest epitaph which can be carved in memory of vanished liberty is that it was lost because its possessor failed to stretch forth a saving hand while yet there was time. In the sixth unsuccessful coup, the people manifested in gathering and statement that there's full support of constitutional government and respect for the rule of law. It is expected that the people's answer to a dictatorship, especially by military junta, would be national civil disobedience. The 1987 Constitution has suffered from abundant violation in many quarters of government, even from the armed forces because of aborted coup attempt. It suffered a setback in the lower house when more than 100 congressmen supported an unconstitutional bill calling for a referendum on the American basis in clear violation of Section 25, Article 18 of this Constitution. The following members voted no, therefore upholding their oath to defend and preserve the Constitution: Cereles Concepcion, Dayang Hirang, Dasa, Gardus, Huson, Labarya, Lagman, Meran, Perez, Ramirez, Rodriguez, Santos, Verano, Yap, Abad, Acosta, Alfilor, Dance, Geligo, and Paras. I would like to quote former Supreme Court Justice Hermogenes Concepcion of Nueva Ecija, who said that Section 25, Article 18 of the new Constitution was so clear that he needed no further elucidation. He stated and whined, when the new centurions shall have taken over, we might find the need to run to the Constitution to seek protection and the vindication of our rights within its halls, only to find out that it has been reduced to a useless scrap of paper because once or too often during our time as we inhaled deep of the intoxication vapor of power. We had the arrogance and the recklessness not to respect and honor the Constitution in letter and in spirit. It was the brilliant Senate President Dr. Jovito Arsalonga, part-up notcher from UP and outstanding alumnus of famous U.S. Harvard University and Yale University, as well as recognized authority of constitutional law and international law, who correctly opined that the Mitra proposed referendum before Senate ratification of a presidential treaty on the American basis was violative of the Constitution. At least 17 CONCOM members, led by CONCOM President Cecilia Munoz Palma and CONCOM Vice President Ambrosio Padilla, both both Bartap Natchez and legal luminarias, supported the Salonga stand. When a public official who had taken his oath to preserve and defend the Constitution called the latter as a source of all miseries in our country today, failed to condemn a rebellion in complete disregard of the Constitution, manifesting his desire to serve under the government of the rebels, even for reason of uniting our people, and asked for a snap election which he knew directly contradicts the Constitution. He has violated his oath of office, which is a betrayal of trust, reposed in him and expressed new ground for impeachment. No other evidence is necessary to sustain a valid basis for impeachment. The proceeding of the 1986 Constitution Commission gave violation of one's oath as an example of betrayal of public trust, a sufficient cause for the impeachment. In the Philippines, it seems very few public officials value their oath of office. One who violates his oath ay taksil sa kanyang pinanunumpaan at hindi karapat-dapat na manungkulan kahit isang sandali lamang. It was the great US President Abraham Lincoln who said that he would respect and honor his oath to defend and preserve the Constitution because his oath was, according to him, written in heaven in our country. Sad to say, one's oath of office ay binabaliwala when this is the sandigan of one's right to hold public office. I ask the appropriate authorities that those who have betrayed the public trust by violating their oath of office be either impeached or removed from office. It was Justice Jose P. Laurel who, in his well-written decision on constitutional law, asked that administrators of government should pay reverential regard to the constitutional that was willed by our people. There have been several decisions by our Supreme Court interpreting provisions of our 1987 Constitution. In the Sarmiento versus Mison case, one dissenting justice observed that it was absurd that an appointment of a consular official must be confirmed by a commission on appointment, while the appointment of an undersecretary of foreign affairs whose position is higher than that the consul is not to be subject to Court of Appeals confirmation. There is no absurdity involved because it is not the level of the position but the function of the office that is considered. A consul represents our country abroad on commercial matters and may even be an undersecretary performs merely administrative duties on local matters. A consul's position international law, his qualification must be rigidly scrutinized to avoid not only possible embarrassment if he turns out to be unfit for the position, but also international repercussion that may arise from his indiscretion or misconduct. How about the appointment of governor of the central bank? His appointment was purposely removed from the confirmatory authority of the Commission on Appointments to prevent a political influence that may adversely affect better implementation of monetary policies. The governor of the Banco Central of the central bank must be a person who enjoys the trust and confidence of the president in the great task of administering an executive function, fiscal matters. The head of the central bank must not owe his gratitude to politicians who might unduly ask for acts of patronage. Ka-superwoman. Yahoo! How are you, ma'am? Ka-superwoman. Magandang gabi po. Maraming salamat sa thumbs up. Waving hand. Pink waving hand. Pink waving. Ay! Maraming salamat, Ma'am Ka-Superwoman. Maraming salamat sa pagbisita. Saan na ba tayo? A ranking official of the Senate said that the Constitutional Commission overlooked the bicameral legislator it created when it provided for only one representative of the Congress in the Judicial and Bar Council. That is not true. There was a consensus in the Commission Committee on Judiciary, as I personally gathered from former Chief Justice Concepcion, that as much as possible, politicians should keep away from the Judicial and Bar Council, and thus we merely provided for one representative from the Congress, and logically, that representative must be the chairman of the commission on appointment of its vice chairman or any member thereof, whether from the Senate of the House of Representatives. By the way, while the commission on appointment has the discretionary authority whether to confirm or not a presidential appointment, the discretion it gravely abused can be inquired into by the Supreme Court, this being now a part of judicial power as defined in Section 1, Article 8 of this Constitution. Such inquiry does not violate the separation of powers, the CA's function being executive in nature. And if Miriam Defensor Santiago's appointment is rejected, she may choose to question the imprudent exercise of CA's power, or she may continuously discharge his duties on a holdover capacity until the President appointment another head of the Department of Agrarian Reform. It is not correct to say that Miriam should get out of the department once her appointment is bypassed or rejected, and that the president should immediately appoint a successor for the compel the president to do so would be undue in interference with her appointing authority. As I find it, the so-called formidable obstacle to Miriam Santiago's confirmation does not exist, as I have explained in my letter to the Senate President. The opinion of the CA legal staff is plainly erroneous. As our government lawyers could go beyond the level of mediocrity that has characterized their legal opinions. President Aquino should have exercised her influence as head of the so-called coalition in seeking Miriam's confirmation rather than adopt a stupid theory of sariling kayod. Hello. Are you there? Are you still there, ka-Superwoman? Maraming salamat sa panonood at pagbisita. Kita kita mamaya, Ma'am ka-Superwoman. I would like to comment on the emergency law of Congress, see addendum, which I consider perfectly constitutional. I am annoyed by the unnecessary discussion, even among lawyers, on whether a warrantless search or seizure is permitted under the Bill of Rights in case of emergency. It should be noted that the Bill of Rights prohibits unreasonable searches and seizures, and it does not say that all searches or seizures must be supported by warrant. It is settled rule that warrants are not required as long as na minuto na ba tayo? 19 minutes. Circumstances indicate good faith. In case of the exercise of the police power of the state, like in the case of checkpoints or in cases of emergency or in cases of moving vehicles, see discussion or unreasonable searches and seizures infra. While I am a lover of civil liberties, I recognize exceptional instances where general rights guaranteed by the Bill of Rights are qualified by the common welfare, that the police power of the state is illimitable and is not exactly defined purposely to widen its scope. The instinct of self-preservation applies not only to individuals but to constitutionally instituted government. What is now the use of emergency law granting emergency powers in the chief executive will also comply with the traditional rules that apply in normal times. Many so-called legal experts cannot convince themselves that the inclusion of love in the preamble is justified. Just like many lawyers members in the Constitutional Commission, they They considered love as a non-judicial concept that should be out of place in the fundamental charter, which is a legal condom documents. Bishop Bakani amended the word love was included in our preamble because in the words of the Commission President Cecilia Munoz Palma, there have been a lot of animosities and hatred that pervade in human society, and it is only love that can provide an antidote to man's inhumanity to man. It was observed that materially grounded empires of Caesar, Charlemagne, Bonaparte, Hitler, and other, including dynasties, have fallen and disappeared, unlike the kingdom of Jesus Christ, that has no end and with ever growing followers because the kingdom of Jesus is based on love. Commissioner Greg Tingson, president of Asian Christian Outreach Incorporated, believing that the preamble of our Constitution is the collective prayer of our people, stan- staunchly supported that inclusion of love in in the preamble, saying that the love is not love until it is shared and given away. Thus, he observed that there are many provisions in our Constitution in sharing social justice, love of humanity as part of the curriculum, etc. The cannot of or have bearing to love. In the Philippines, I know of only one educational institution that requires its student population to recite the preamble every morning at their flag raising ceremony. It is a Fortress College in Kabangkalan, Negros Occidental, headed by Commissioner Greg Tingson, whose, whose meaningful and active participation in the Constitutional Commission has endeared him in the hearts of our people. Until now, after almost 3 years of effectivity of this new constitution, some misguided and prejudiced leaders still kept on saying that the CONCOM commissioner did not enjoy the mandate of the people and that the constitution was rashly prepared, alleged by without adequate discussion, and that the constitution was drafted only for Cory Aquino. These are plainly and highly stupid assertions. We, the CONCOM commissioners, were carefully selected out of almost 2,000 nominees from all over the country by a national screening committee and by members of the cabinet. Our so-called lack of mandate was skewed by the overwhelming ratification of the Constitution in an incredible plebiscite. The constitutional provisions were not drafted by Congress. The first resolution in the Constitutional Commission of our public consultation, which was opposed by some members of the Commission, led by Ambrosio Padilla. For one solid month, the 48 CONCOM Commission asked for their proposals. Private and religious organizations, including the NAMFREL and government offices, cooperated in such nationwide consultation. It was greatly elated to see people from all walks of life, convening in big group, hundreds and thousands of them, with their own proposal, which were publicly dissected and discussed. Workshops were set up, and the great enthusiasm manifested by community leaders and members inspired up to work harder and meet more and more people in so short period of time. Our people debated in seminars, pulong-pulong, radio and television programs, and even in classrooms. Thousands of questions have been posed to the CONCOM commissioners who ably responded to the great satisfaction of our people. The whole country was agog over the government-sponsored drafting of the supreme law of our republic. After the nationwide consultation, the CONCOM members divided themselves into several committees. We again conducted public hearings on various issues, and leaders from different parts and sectors of our country traveled to Manila purposely to air their views. In the meantime, we continued to receive proposals in writing from practically and political subdivisions of our country and from Filipinos abroad after the committee reports have been submitted as a result of exhaustive committee deliberation that CONCOM commissioners subjected that these reports to the minutest serenity in plenary sessions by way of interpellation, amendments, and debates. Even during this stage of plenary consideration, our people continued to send in their last minute proposals, some even by telegrams, all of which were considered by the commissions. The CONCOM plenary session began at 11 a.m., lasting up to 7 p.m. There were times that some of us had to check in nearby hotels at our expense because our session would end late night. Isa ba tayo? Oh, 25. After the Constitution was adopted on October 5, 1986, a nationwide information campaign was conducted with all the CONCOM commissioners hopping from one province, city of municipality to another, explaining the contents of the Constitution to the people personally, or on radio or television, as well as in newspaper or hands out. Millions of copies of the new Constitution, including printed primers, were distributed for distribution. Political writers published their manuscript on the new Constitution, and they're solid like hotcakes. I should know because I was one of them. The people were enlightened, and their participatory interest was truly remarkable. And now, where were these leaders? Some from the Senate and the lower house, and some are city of municipalities